Everyone. Yeah, so that one was a little rough. Welcome to another edition of ECH Postgame Live. I think this one will be more Emerald City therapy time than the last game or than some of the previous games. As you may have noticed, it's me, RJ, instead of Dylan. I'm starting things off again. Dylan wanted to go down, and oh man, the lighting just changed on a dime there. So anyway, I'm starting things off here. Dylan's going to go down and talk to the players and the coaches. Lights are back. That's good. All right. Um, and it just felt like this one was going to be, it might be one of those games where a team just gets thoroughly outplayed the entire time, but still finds a way to tie it or even win just because it's hockey. And even after the Jared McCann goal, it felt like, I don't know, maybe the Kraken are going to tie this. But overall, they did not deserve to win this game. You can't come out of a game like this where you get thoroughly dominated like in the way that they did and expect to win or even get a point. So I won't sugarcoat it. That's what this game is. We'll start things off in chat here. We got Zoe, not to be that person, but we are now 9-24-5 without Vince Dunn. Yeah, I had that thought a couple times during the game. They're struggling without Vince Dunn, and especially they're struggling to produce offense. And I know Dan Bilesma said the other day, look, there's no excuses. You have to find ways to generate offense without Vince Dunn. And part of that is just being determined from top to bottom. There was not enough determination here in this game, at least not in the first couple periods. And yeah, they are struggling without Vince Dunn. I think it's kind of clear that he is a big part of what makes the team work, not just defensively, but offensively. And I know the goal scoring stats with and without Vince Dunn are pretty stark as well. So they're missing him for sure, but they're going to have to find a way to get points without him. I think facing some easier competition will help. James, that was pitiful. Attempts were like 100-30, and they looked unreal slow against this Canes team. Horrible breakouts, just a bad overall effort. I mean, I do think if you want to put a little positive spin on it, right? I do think a lot of it wasn't necessarily what the Kraken weren't doing, but what the Canes were doing. Because man, Carolina, they just put this pressure on the Kraken defensively, offensively, everywhere. And Dan kind of warned us about it this morning. He said this team pressures you. They put pressure and aggressiveness everywhere along the ice. And he wasn't kidding. I mean, the pressure that they laid on, this is something the Kraken haven't seen this season. I think the Dallas game was probably the closest to it, but no team has put that kind of pressure, that kind of forecheck on the Kraken this year. And it just threw off the timing. The Kraken had no way of dealing with what Carolina was doing, and then they couldn't find an answer. Kyle, man, was it just me, or did it feel like there were 6 Canes in the neutral zone all game? Yeah, I mean, that's part of what that pressure does, is like when you don't have time to move the puck, you kind of have to throw it to areas, and the Canes were really well positioned in the neutral zone to make sure the Kraken couldn't get through it. And yeah, they were so good at, like, one player in particular, Seth Jarvis. Like, I know on the Armchair GM stream, I kind of proposed doing an offer sheet for him. He is a heck of a player. He covers so much ice. He is everywhere at the same time. I'll stop like raving about the Canes, but like they just played this game so well, and the Kraken could not keep up at all. And as Brian's saying here, Brian, I know, knows the Canes very well. Canes will make a lot of teams look like that. We got masterclassed. Yeah, this is Carolina playing exactly the way that they want to play, and the Kraken just having no answer. Rayanne, that hurt. Yeah. Joey Decord showed up. Everyone else on the team, debatable. Joey did show up. Like, I thought Joey played a really good game. He gave him a chance, right? And that's kind of all you can ask from a goalie in a game like this, is just give your team a chance to even like get to the third period. And Joey did that. And so good on Joey for playing well, especially after, I think, not the best game last game. I think Joey had a really good bounce back game in this one. So happy to see that from him. I think, he's his play is a positive you can take out of this one. It's a short list of positives I think you can take out, but his play is certainly one of those. James, seriously don't remember a single good cycle in the ozone until the third period. Yeah, they're really, I mean, I won't sugarcoat it. There weren't any. And we got a couple super chats here. This one from Schultz. Berkey looking like a liability out there. Couldn't even cherry pick given what's available in CV. Is it time to package him with a third in a trade? Okay, starting with the play tonight. Look, Berkey wasn't that good. I think most of the players on the team weren't all that good. So it wasn't just a Berkey problem, but yeah, he's struggled to find a place in this lineup. And I don't know, as far as moving him, it would take a lot more than a third to move that contract. Like, we're talking first round pick probably at a minimum. And at that point, it's not really worth it for the Kraken to do. I hate to say it, but if I'm going armchair GM mode, it's going to take a lot more than that to move that contract. And I maybe you revisit that in the off season, but it's going to take a lot more than a third. And so that's kind of a more uncomfortable conversation to have there. We have another super chat here. This one from Jenna. Dunn is our magic chemistry pixie dust haver, but without him last spring, we gave up, and tonight they at least tried. And that is true. And I'm glad you brought that up, Jenna, because that is something that I wanted to point out about this game. And it's something I mentioned to Dylan during the game as I turned to him. And as bad as the Kraken played, it was still 1-0 for a long time. And I said this to Dylan. I said, look, if this was last year's team, this game would be over and they would have been blown out, and it wouldn't even be close. At least this team kept it close. And you could always tell the effort was there. Even if the results weren't there, the effort was still there. You didn't see any quit in them. It's just, they were just outclassed by this Canes team. So I'm glad you brought that up, Jenna. Let's see. Chris, what is passing? I mean, there were some passes. There was one that like Maddie made that could have sprung McCann for a great chance in the third period that kind of went between the two guys that were open. But like overall, I feel like it's just the pressure the Canes were applying. Like the Kraken had no answer for it, and they were rushed to make a lot of those passes. Amanda, somehow I feel gassed after watching that. Yeah, same here. Like there was no time for anybody to think. When the Kraken had the puck, somebody was immediately on them. The Canes are just a team that makes you skate, that makes you work, even to the very end too. Like it's 4-1. They've scored on the empty net. The game is over and they're playing out the last minute. It's in the Kraken zone because Carolina's still pressuring them and staying on them in the offensive zone. And just like most teams would sit back at that point, Canes didn't. It was a full 60 from that group. So yeah, you got to respect it. Let's see here down in chat. Be somber mood lighting for the loss. Yeah, it's kind of gone in between the two. I think they've turned off some of the lights, but not all. And then, James saying that Yanni and Berkey don't belong on the ice right now. Yanni can't stay out of the box, and Berkey brings nothing to either side of the puck. I mean, the Berkey thing we kind of covered, but Yanni, I mean, it has been tough with the penalties. And it's tough because I think the Kraken did a good job staying out of the box in the last game, knowing how dangerous the other team's power play was. And I think maybe a lot of that focus got funneled into that game about staying out of the box. And maybe they kind of lost a little bit of that focus in this one. And they did take some penalties. I will say the refs called it pretty tight. Last game was a very much let them play, don't call very much type of game. And this officiating crew called a lot. But that is an adjustment you have to realize over the course of a game and make. Let's see. And then Ricky wanting a shakeup, 9 games, 9 points, no playoff spot, same 12 forwards, all 9 games, half of which are 1 goal or less. Shake it up. I mean, we have talked about the 20 games thing and give them some time to kind of learn the system and everything. I wouldn't mind seeing a call up at this point. I mean, they have lost 3 in a row, seeing a call up from CV. They have the cap space to do it now, or the ability to exceed the cap anyway, to do it with Dunn on LTIR. And you know what? I think they will call up someone for this upcoming road trip. I would have said that no matter how they played tonight, but I think now whoever they call up, probably a forward, might actually get in the lineup. Yeah, I mean, everyone kind of talking about how Edwards, the puck might as well have been soaked the way it was evading Kraken sticks. Yeah, this was just a masterclass by the Carolina Hurricanes. Hockey Fork, do you think they paid big for Montour knowing Dunn was likely going to miss the start of the season? I've been asking myself that of late. I mean, it would check out, but the thing is, I mean, Dunn did play to start the season, and the injuries he's dealing with, like the one right now to his mid-body, we saw where it happened. It had nothing to do with anything he was dealing with last season. I think it's just been a run of bad luck. Dunn doesn't really have the injury history before last season, so it's not like you could pin it on that. And I think it's just been unlucky. And I mean, as for how Montour's played, like they clearly had a vision. They saw what he could bring to the team, even with Dunn there. Like we're seeing what he's doing. It kind of would make sense to sign him, given what he does for the team right now, even otherwise. So I mean, it's an idea that might make sense on paper, but I still don't think it had anything to do with it. And Brian, we would have lost 7-1 with Gruby and net. Joey was our best player. Yeah, he certainly was. Joey was the best Kraken. Actually, he was named first star tonight. As I saw the 3 stars out there in front of me on the Twins. So yeah, I mean, what was the final shot count? I'm looking at 38. Did he make like 34 saves, something like that? So no, I mean, Joey played well. And Christian, looks like we traded beam for bottom of stairs. Yeah, actually, those stairs over there lead up to like around where the beam is. So yeah, the beam spot was actually taken. There was somebody at the beam spot, so I had to adjust. And Stratic, given the quality of opposition, I'm not panicking yet. This team does need to figure out how to get better, though. Yes, I mean, I think giving you a little preview on maybe Monday's podcast, at least my opinions on it. I mean, you could almost title the episode like "We are who they thought they we are who we thought they were." I'm screwing up the football quote there, but they are who we thought they were. Like the Kraken are better than the bad teams in the league. They're worse than the best teams in the league, as we're seeing right now. They're kind of in that middle, and so they're going to be fighting it out with those mid teams who are all trying to make the playoffs. So I'm not panicking because that's kind of where we thought they'd be. And they are picking up enough points that they're not out of it. They haven't put themselves out of it. So they do need to figure out how to get better and be one of the better ones of those mid teams. But it's kind of where they are at this point. And it's not the worst thing. Like playoffs are still possible when you're in that tier. But I think we're kind of seeing pretty clearly the pecking order and where the Kraken stand in it. And Aaron, that was brutal. Easily the most lopsided game I've seen in CPA. Never had a chance. It was very lopsided. And yeah, Amanda, again, I see all the talk about Berkey and like, I don't really fully disagree with it. It's, you know, I think I said this maybe last game or the game before. I've said it a few times, but it feels like whatever line he's on is the leftovers line. And I just don't know that you're ever going to be able to make that not the case at this point, to be honest. Vyren, the Hurricanes are so frustrating when they're on. They really are, because it feels like you just don't even have a chance. Like they're just so good when they're playing the way that they can play like this. The pressure is ridiculous. I've never seen anything else like it. Let's see. Jake, Joey deserved a better stat line. Yeah, he did. I imagine this has to be a quality start though, based on the expected goals. I haven't checked like after the end of the game. I can check right now. Let's open up the window here and see, at least via Money Puck, because that's the easiest one to get to, if this is a quality start. It has to be. Yeah, Canes had 4.39 expected goals. Joey allowed 3. That's definitely a quality start and a deserved one for Joey. Stratic, Stevenson said in the first intermission, we need to do what they do. That is true, and I was following along on the Discord, and I think it was your comment, Stratic. It's like, does Stevenson know he's on TV? Yeah, we need to do what they do. When playing against a team playing like that, the Hurricanes, yeah, I don't blame him for saying we need to do what they do. It was a near perfect game played by Carolina, so it actually kind of makes sense. Let's see. Brooke trading Berkey would help our cap situation. I mean, it would. The problem is the price to get rid of him. Let's see. Jenna, I blame all the reverse retro jerseys. There were a fair amount in the stands, but I don't know that I don't know. I feel like no more, like not that much more than usual. And then Mason saying, you know, we couldn't seem to ever get a foothold in the game. Canes are good, but this felt like a step back from the last few games. Yeah, I mean, I think it almost just felt like a step up in terms of how the opponent was playing. I feel like the Kraken, you know, they really didn't do a ton differently. Their opponent played a better game. Like I feel like even the Jets had some turnovers in the neutral zone and things that the Kraken could capitalize off of. And I think a lot of the Kraken's game too is built off of making the opponent pay for mistakes or turnovers in the neutral zone or things like that. And the Canes just didn't make mistakes. There's nothing to take advantage of. You kind of had to generate everything yourself, and it took 2.5 periods to do that. Let's see. Yeah, Vyren said didn't think Burakovsky looked noticeably worse than anyone else tonight, and that's where I will caution, I guess, against like kind of trying to point out any one player's bad play tonight, just because it was an everybody problem. Aside from Joey, there was nobody who looked particularly good in this game for the Kraken. So like I wouldn't want to pin things on any one particular player, but with Berkey, it is a little bit more of a pattern. Christian, I think I need a Stevenson. We need to do what they do t-shirt. That's funny. And then Cole, what's up with the calls the last few games or no calls? Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, the officiating standard was just different tonight. Like they were calling a lot of little things, and I did think it went both ways at times. Like there were a few slashing, they were really tough on any kind of stick around the gloves, all of that. They were made sure to call in this one. And I mean, even like early on the it was right at the beginning of the game. It was kind of the Montour hit where puck was gone for a little bit, hit him up high. And I think a lot of refs probably don't call that. But this crew, I think, wanted to make sure to stay on top of things and be like, look, no, nothing late, nothing high, get in the box. And we're kind of teaching a lesson here. And it's very different than the officiating crew last game. So it is tough as an NHL player to adjust to the different officiating crews that you're going to get. But it's just something that both teams need to deal with, though. Scroll down in chat here. Fusion Mix, maybe it's good that after the World Series game, I cooked dinner instead of watching this. Sounds like the Canes played their game. They're real good at making okay teams look flat out bad. Yeah, that's basically what happened. Let's see. Kyle, not to bang on Ron after every game, but it's wild to see how badly we can be outclassed given our cap situation. This is kind of what Dylan and I were talking about, whether it's on the podcast or the Armchair GM stream, where, yeah, I mean, they're capped out. They're in the same cap situation as the Canes. They're spending that same kind of money. They have similar types of commitments, and you can see the difference in what that's paying for each team. And, for better or worse, it's kind of a bubble playoff team for the Kraken. And that is kind of what they're paying for at this point. Like, it's what we talked about on the podcast. But yeah, it is kind of crazy. Let's see. Brian, one silver lining. Seattle is still the only team Bernsey hasn't scored against. That's all I got. That's interesting. I enjoy that stat there, Brian, is, growing up a Sharks fan, definitely a big fan of Brent Burns. He's one of the easy guy to root for. And he's just such a fun player. And I always enjoy watching him in person. Tonight was no different. So, but glad he hasn't scored against the Kraken. That's pretty good. And then Christian, it's definitely a need to beat the teams we can beat kind of season to be in the playoffs. Yeah, it's going to make those games against teams that are in that range all the more important. Lindsay, Joey getting the Gru goal support treatment. Bummer about all the Carolina power plays. Hopefully the boys can beat Montreal. Feel like a Shane revenge goal is coming. I could see it. I mean, he feels like he's due for one. They did put him up from the fourth line, or lines 1 through 3. You kind of not sure which line they are, but he did get up out of the fourth line spot in this game. Although the line blender hit, and I didn't really keep track of where he ended up, but I don't know. I think it would be good for Dan to put him in a position to kind of help get him going a little bit. This game, nobody got going, but I wouldn't mind seeing him get one more try with Tolvanen and Bjorkstrand. Let's see. Sarah, Kraken outplayed, but my daughter and I enjoyed being at the game. I'm glad you and your daughter had a good time there, Sarah. I do love when people are able to get out to games in person and have a good time, win or loss. There were definitely still some fun moments, and it was fun being in the building too. So glad you enjoyed that, Sarah. And then Viren, really hoping those Riker Alexiak injuries don't linger too much. I know they were back out before the end of the game, but still not great. Yeah, I mean, Alexiak, that one just kind of hit him on the inside of the knee, and usually those are just ones that sting for a bit and you can come back. I was more concerned than usual because it took him a while to come back, and he wasn't on the bench for a while for one of those types of injuries, but hopefully it's not one that lingers. You never know what it can hit in there. There's lots of stuff in that knee area that it could hit, but hopefully he's okay. The fact he came back is definitely a good sign, though. He's a tough player. And then Riker, I think it was the one where the puck kind of got him up high. Was it that, or was there something else? Because that was a weird play, because it ramps up off his stick, I think off his glove, off his forearm, and then like rolled up his face. And that's rare. You don't usually see that, but that could have been a lot worse. So glad was at least okay from that. And then Zoe, I think that they signed Montour seeing what happened to Dunn, but not anticipating more things happening. Yeah, I mean, that's true. If you do see that Dunn goes down and your team kind of falls apart, yeah, you may not think that Dunn's going to stay out, but yeah, if it does happen, you might want a bit more of an insurance policy. That's a good point, Zoe. And then, yeah, be scared about the depth on D if Alexiak, if there any more long-term injuries there. Yeah, with Dunn out and one more, that would be tough. That said, Cale Fleury, as much as we joke about him being the player that just sent up, sent down, sent up, sent down, like he can be solid on the blue line if given the opportunity as just a third pairing guy. But yeah, you can't afford to lose a couple top four guys, and I really no NHL team can and still be the same. Let's see. Oh yeah, Borgen with the door, as Brooke pointing out. Yeah, that was a weird one too, where Borgen's kind of being like rubbed along the wall, and the door is open, and it hit him kind of weird. Yeah, definitely some scary moments for the defenseman in this one. Um, had Ravina sign Beam reserved for Emerald City Hockey. That would be funny. Let's see. Oh, and then Jenna, that goal Lars kept out was gorgeous. It was. And the replay, like what I posted on social media and the replay that you saw probably on the broadcast, didn't even show the whole thing because it only showed the end where Aho is just trying to get there and Larson boxes him out and then bats the puck away. But even before that, the puck gets worked out to the point for the shot that eventually gets there. And as soon as that happens, Aho recognizes that and goes directly to the net. Like he's trying to get to that spot. Lars has his head up and sees that Aho is coming from the corner and trying to get there, immediately goes up and just gets right in front of him and tries bodying him out and just keeps him away from the net. That's an instance of the bigger man, the stronger man, just clearly winning a battle. And I just love seeing that from Lars. That is vintage Adam Larsson. And he saved a goal. Like it did prevent a goal from going in. So the impact was certainly there. And let's see. Olivia, I'm not saying reffing has been 100% the worst issue, but God, we really seem to get the rough end of the stick when the reffing is strict or sloppy. I will say, when they do call it tighter, the Kraken have been called more than their opponents. And maybe that is something that even the coaching staff might need to work with them on just recognizing, because I think teams do pre-scouts of refs and say, okay, this is the way that they usually call things. And I think that is part of video training for teams. Maybe the Kraken need to do a little bit more of that for the team officials that call it kind of tight, because in the last few games we have seen when they do call it tight, the Kraken aren't getting away with as much as say their opponents. And so how do you adjust to that? How do you make sure you don't do the things that these officials kind of like to harp on? So that is an interesting point there. Mason, that's the medical terminology. Lots of stuff. Yeah. Daniel, Tyler Myers is on After Hours. Yeah, yuck. I think he got an A. I think he was an alternate captain for the Canucks tonight. So, yeah, don't love that. Jenna, I love Cale. Yeah. I feel bad for him getting the normal Cale Fleury treatment again, but I'm glad he was at least able to play in CV and that they've kind of sent him down, at least for the time being. Wouldn't be surprised to call him up for the road trip, though. Daniel, teams are really taking advantage of making Joey move side to side. Yeah, I mean, he is one of the more aggressive goalies. If you're talking about the first goal also, though, I feel like even Grubauer doesn't get back on that one. That's just such a... They forget the player there. I think it was Svechnikov. I don't know that any goalie really gets back to have a good chance at that one. That's just such a tough play to stop. And then, kind of thinking about the other goals, Joey gets a little bit aggressive. His lateral movement isn't bad if he can read it well. But yeah, I think some teams are kind of taking advantage of that. This one I thought was a better game for him in that respect than say the last one. Viren, I was surprised to see Fleury play last night. Yeah, I was too, because they had just been doing the sending him up and down, the paper transactions, not actually moving him. But I think you had one game left on the homestand. Here's my thinking on it. You have one game left on the homestand. You don't have, it's a day off, right? You don't have a practice the day before, so nobody's going to get hurt in practice. So what your lineup is going to be tonight, and that no one else is going to get hurt. You're not going to need him, so you can send him down for that game in Coachella Valley, and you have a little bit of time before the road trip starts, and you can probably just send him out with you on the road trip if that's kind of what you're thinking for Cale Fleury. So I think they could afford to send him down, at least have him stay for a few days before he needs to head out on the road, possibly to Eastern Canada. Jake, they also roofed most of their goals. Yeah, I mean, the Canes were hitting those spots for sure. It was just a tough assignment for Joey in this one. There's not a whole lot he could do on some of those goals. And especially like what's the one I'm thinking of? It was their second one where it's just you felt that goal coming, for a while because they had so many good chances, and the Canes they just dominated for long stretches of this one, and it was just a tough assignment for Joey there. And like on that 2-on-1, there's nothing else he can do. Like he has to get aggressive and challenge that shot on the 2-on-1. So there's really nothing he can do. So I've reached the end of chat. Before Dylan, I don't even see him setting up yet. So if anyone else has anything else to say, yeah, please put it in chat. I mean, Dylan and I both kind of felt like I don't know how much realistically that the players and Dan are going to have to say about this one because they just got so thoroughly outplayed. I am curious what Dan has to say about the pressure that Carolina put on and maybe what the Kraken could do a little better to counteract that. As I see Dylan now walking over to set up, I mean, it'll probably take a few minutes, but glad to see Dylan is there. Here, actually, since we have some time, I'm going to share this. I forgot to post this last game, but I took a picture of Dylan. So this is what it looks like from my vantage point. There's Dylan over in the spot. So this is not live, of course. This is from last game. But if you're ever wondering what it looks like from my vantage point as I see Dylan get set up, there he is. Zoe, would Dunn have actually made a difference in this game, or was this just a better team? I don't think he makes enough of a difference to win this game. It's a good question, but I think he certainly helps. But and maybe I think it's a slim chance, but maybe it's one of those games where you make it 2-1 or it's 1-0, and Dunn just does something super special that just generates a goal by himself. He can do that, but I think it's still unlikely. The Kraken, any way you slice it, they lose this game. There's really nothing that could help them aside from having like a proper star player or something just dropped. McDavid dropped onto their roster. Maybe it's a little bit different, but even then, I don't know. The Canes just played so well. Let's see, Mason. On a positive note, can we just chat more about Canner Beniers Eberle line and how effective they've been? Yeah, absolutely. We can talk about that because again, they were, I'd say, effective in this one. Pretty much all the chances, anything of note the Kraken got in this one was from that line or from one of those three. They're still doing their thing. McCann keeps the 6-game point streak going, and he's done fantastic. Like this might be one of the best stretches we've seen from him on the Kraken. That's really saying something because he's had some good stretches in the past, but he's doing great. Stratic, I will ask Dylan, did Dylan do rock, paper, scissors to do the press stuff? No, actually, we just talked to each other like, hey, you want it to this game. So that's just kind of how we decided. We also, again, we're trying to get him those reps before the Toronto game. He's going to Toronto. He's going to be at the Leafs game. We want to make sure he's ready for that. So it's all about getting meaningful reps, going into the real thing, into the heart of the hockey world in Toronto. So that's really what it is. Daniel, are either of you SoCal boys Dodger fans? The answer is no. I'll let Dylan explain his side of it. I actually grew up an Oakland A's fan in baseball, so it's been real fun. Not that I follow them all that close, but yeah, not the best organization there. B loves the RJ point of view. Brooke, this RJ point of view of Dylan is hilarious. I didn't realize you stood in the stands. I thought it was a tripod situation. No, it's actually, and there's Dylan. He's ready here. So as you can see, this is kind of the setup that he has. But yeah, it is a tripod situation. He's given me the thumbs up. All right, you can see. Let's go, Dylan, as I go find the overlay here. There we go. Dylan, welcome. I was showing him that picture that I showed you that I took the other night of you from my point of view and what it looks like.
Yeah.
So everyone's kind of getting the little inside baseball on this one. And speaking of baseball, we were asked if we were Dodgers fans, and I told him no.
Yeah, no. I was raised. It wasn't for a long part of my childhood, but at the most formative time, and that was in the Bay Area, going to San Francisco Giants games. So about as far from a Dodger fan as you can get.
Yep. So the different Bay Area teams, I preferred the A's and Brooke with the RJ with the A's and Sharks. Big oof. Yeah. Don't I know it? But anyway, moving on to better things than maybe not much better things than the A's and the Sharks, actually. So how was the mood after this one? Because look, we've talked about it in chat plenty already, but like the Kraken got pretty thoroughly outplayed in this one. Was that kind of how the players and Dan saw it?
Yeah, actually, maybe not in such a direct way, but yeah, that is basically how everybody felt. We talked. Jared McCann talked about how aggressive and how much pressure the Hurricanes were placing on them, and just said, look, it's frustrating to play against that. You have to make the most of your opportunities. You have to really grind for your opportunities. And the bottom line is they just didn't tonight. And Dan really echoed a lot of that as well. He talked about how, he was asked, right? Like, given that you had brought up this morning, that you expected this pressure from them, and then they brought the pressure. Were you disappointed or frustrated with the kind of lack of results, given that you kind of saw this coming and you were trying to prepare for it? And he said he was, he's obviously disappointed in the overall results of everything. But really, I mean, he said it's just when you're playing a team that is going to aggressively come at you like that, they're going to clog up the neutral zone. They're going to be hard on the forecheck, not let you break pucks out. You have to make the most of your opportunities, and you have to make plays off your instincts. You can't hold on to the puck too long. And he just felt that there was too many times that they held on to the puck too long. They were trying to do too much. He said, you just got to move the puck. You just got to go with it, take what they're giving you. And then the next thing you know, you're going to get down the ice. And that the team just didn't do that tonight.
Yeah, I think that's well said and pretty much the case. I mean, did anyone have any positives to take out of this? I'm just curious if there was any kind of positive angle on it.
It's positive in the sense that like Jared McCann got another one and he's looking good. He said that he thought that, the numbers may not back this up, but Coach Dan did talk about how he thought that this was Joey Decord's best game. And so, and I got to agree, right? I mean, he played a phenomenal game tonight. He made some huge saves for them, really kept them in a game that, certainly if you're looking at shot charts or maybe, I don't know what the advanced metrics were necessarily, but I can't imagine they were very kind through the vast majority of the start of this one. And Joey really kept them in it. So I understand where the coach is coming from there.
Yeah, it was a quality start for Joey for sure. After looking up those numbers, it's a quality start for Joey Decord. And yeah, I think the Canes had 4.5 expected goals in this one, and Joey did pretty well there. So that's something we kind of agreed with in chat as well. So let's go over into chat here a little bit more. And then
I can say this because this might be interesting for some people. We saw Jared McCann going with Sebastian Aho there.
Oh yes,
right?
yes.
Off of that.
Did you talk about it?
Yeah, he did. He did talk about that, and he said, look, he felt bad for throwing the puck on there, and the whole situation that kind of led up to that. And he said he went over. Aho had given him like a cross check during the whistle, so he went over and he asked him, "Hey, do you want to go?" And Aho declined. So that was it.
Oh, okay. Wow, I didn't think it would be that way around.
Yeah, no, that's what he said. So
all right, I classic canon, honestly.
Yeah, but he said it very like look, he said no, and that was it. Like from then on, it's over.
Classy on both sides, really, because it's like I'm willing to answer the bell if that's what you guys feel like you need to do, and then Aho being like, it's recognizing it wasn't on purpose, and the fact that he went and approached him about that too, said no, we're good, and that was the end of it. I love that. That's exactly how you want to handle something like that. So thank you for sharing that. That was really interesting. Is there anything else? Because I mean that was great. So I want to give you another chance. Is there anything else?
That was basically it, right? Like the big theme of the night was just like the Hurricanes were super aggressive. They came at the Kraken in a way that the Kraken have not had anybody come at them, right? Like they have not had to play a game against a team that was going to be this aggressive on the forecheck, this aggressive through the neutral zone, really trying to take away all of the good things that the Kraken have been doing, right? How many times have we heard Coach Dan talk about it, or how many times have you and I talked about it, either on deep dive or on post game like this, right? The ability of the Kraken to generate offense, moving the puck out of their D zone. And this was really the first time that it felt, I know we talked about this a little bit after the Colorado game on post game, but this truly felt like the time where a team said, we have to game plan for this, and we have to absolutely go out there and put a stop to it. I guess the Calgary game was the other one. I brought it up, and it looked like Calgary was doing their best to try to take away what the Kraken wanted to do. Not nearly as successful as what the Hurricanes were able to do tonight.
Well, the Canes have some more talent to be able to do that.
Exactly. And so I think, and probably better coaching staff too, for being real about things.
Yeah.
And so I think that, it was an interesting test for this Kraken group, and kind of showed where they can continue to work on things and the lessons that they still need to learn as you're facing a good team that understands how you play, wants to take away what you want to do. And then they were able to go out there and kind of do that. And so I think Dan really talking about how we got to trust our instincts. We can't hold on to the puck. We have to just make plays. Like, you get the puck, you just make a play. Like, just kind of building that and kind of moving from there, because I think as they're going to play more and more good teams, you might see those teams take this approach the way the Hurricanes did tonight, because it is so effective.
Yeah, it's the kind of thing that you're probably going to have to make counter adjustments against. And we talked about having that plan A, but needing to have that plan B. So looking ahead, because we're getting some comments on that. I mean, I want to touch on this from X Kid Z and like Jenna even following up on it with not wanting to touch the McCann, Beniers, Eberle line. Because yeah, I mean, they've been great.
Yeah.
I'm really wondering how they could build the line around Shane. And we talked about that a little bit too. I think they were kind of trying to go with something like, with Tolvey and Bjorkstrand, and giving him that opportunity instead of like the fourth line or the leftovers line with Karche and Burakovsky. But I'm curious, Dylan, because you've always got the line combos that you want to see. If you were to then try and build the next line around Shane, what would you go with?
Yeah, I mean, talked about him with Tolvanen in the past, right? Like, again, I want to see him with somebody that's going to go into the corners for him, kind of free him up, right? Because again, if he's not going to be with like a McCann or an Eberle, where it's like, okay, his job is to make space for somebody else. If he's going to be the guy that has to be the focal point of the line, then I think he's going to need at least maybe a Ty Cartier or a Brandon Tanev. Honestly, right now, the way Tanev's playing, just because Tanev, this is my way of thinking about it. Tanev has been so fast through the neutral zone and so quick to get into the offensive zone and go on the forecheck. He will just steal that opportunity from Shane. He will not. Yep. Shane will not be in a place to go into the zone and start grinding. He's going to be forced into a scoring role. And so I think maybe a Brandon Tanev just for that reason. And then, I probably wouldn't break up Berkey and Chandler Stevenson, although I thought Andre Burakovsky played a good game with Shane Wright, for the first two periods last game. So you could consider doing that maybe on the other side.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people pretty tough on Berkey after this one. I felt like it was kind of an everybody thing, and so singling out any one player, wasn't. It's not really the takeaway to have from this game.
Yeah.
That said, yeah, he did look rough again. I'm curious if you agreed.
I guess so. And so in that sense, you could maybe break him off from Stevenson, because you could argue that the best we saw Berkey look was Shane, right? So maybe you stick him there, and there's just something to Stevenson being a setup man, Berkey being a setup man, that just doesn't really work on that line, especially because Jaden Schwartz on the other end is just going to kind of go to the net front, right? He's not going to necessarily set himself up in the slot to receive passes from one of those two other guys. So you could definitely throw a Berkey onto a line with a Shane Wright and just kind of know that, look, he's not going to take a lot of shots, right? Like, I guess this is just really, as I'm thinking about it, like nobody takes shots on this team, right? Like Chandler Stevenson's not going to take a lot of shots, Berkey's not going to take a lot of shots. Like, you can just go on and on and on with all the guys that are not going to be taking shots. Very few guys that will. I think Shane Wright could be one of those guys. Again, though, he needs somebody on his line that's going to take over for the tough jobs that he's been kind of assigning himself. Or maybe it's from the coaching staff, but it sure looks like he's taking it upon himself to go into the corners and do that stuff.
Yeah, and then we do have a couple kind of suggestions here. This one from Ricky. Shane needs Yanni on his wing, but they have no extra center, which that can be remedied with a call-up. But yeah, what do you think about Yanni potentially on Shane's wing?
Yanni works, right? I mean, we've talked about that. I know Mason down there, Tanev, Wright, Karts, like that could be one. It'd be a very high-energy line. Again, I don't know that you get necessarily Shane scoring from that.
You kind of need the production out of him, honestly.
Right. Like that's the whole tricky part with all this is I feel like you could put together a really good line that's going to have a lot of positive possession time for you, but I don't know that you're going to necessarily be generating a ton of looks off of them, right? I don't think you're going to boost his production and kind of get the points flowing for him.
Right. And then Byron, please don't put Berkey in the same group as Stevenson and shot volume tiers.
Yeah.
Stevenson is very, it is a bit of a difference for sure.
There is a different tier, but the bottom line is there's a lot of guys on this team that are going to look to pass first, right? And that is an issue that we talked about last year. It's largely the same group this year, and that is just something that at some point they're going to have to remedy, or at least massage the lines until you definitively have one kind of trigger man on each group.
Yeah. And then this one from Zoe, though, asking you, Dylan, did Dan talk about the penalties?
He did not. No.
Okay. Because that was something that was brought up earlier about the penalties. And there were a lot of penalties called in this one. I feel like they were a little bit soft overall, but they went both ways at different times. And the refs just kind of called this one tighter. Was that your read on it?
Yeah, basically, right? Like it was kind of rough at the beginning. Obviously, it's not the way you want to start a game. I wonder kind of how that affected the group, but honestly, like I feel like what affected the group more was just how much the Hurricanes pressured them. The fact that the Hurricanes were not going to let them break out of their own zone, like that did way more damage to them than any of the penalties, whether it was the early penalties or it was the 4-minute high stick that kind of bled over into the start of the third.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. And then Ricky mentioning Jagger Firkus, he is the unconscious shooter in the organization, but he's months away at best. And we did have a few comments before this that I kind of pull back up, but basically asking about maybe seeing a change. I know James was asking about it, like if the Kraken make a call up from CV. I mean, first of all, would you support them doing that? If so, who would you call up, and who would you like to see if they were to make it into the lineup?
That's a tough
Firkus
one.
is a bit ambitious. I don't think he's ready yet, as Ricky even acknowledges.
Yes, Firkus is definitely ambitious. I think all the young guys are going to be ambitious there. I think it's even still like I would love to say Ryan Winterton, but again, I feel like he's more of what you already have right now. Like he hasn't necessarily stepped into that role in with the Firebirds where it's, okay, I'm a top 6 guy. I'm going to start producing like that. I'm going to focus on the offense. Like he's kind of got a lot of the same issues that Shane Wright does, where it's, dude, you're a skilled player. You absolutely could be putting up numbers here, but instead he's almost too focused on doing things the right way and going into the corner and winning puck battles and making space for his line mates. And it's like, okay, that's great. It's obviously great fundamentals to have as a player. You're kind of needed for something else right now. And so I think for that reason, I probably wouldn't pick Wins. So then it just kind of comes around to the more veteran guys, right? Like a Ben Myers you start talking about.
Yeah, that's who I would go with, is either Ben Myers if you kind of want to go with that speed game and introduce that on the fourth line, especially if you want to move Yanni over to the wing, which I would support trying at this point. Also, or a John Hayden, just the kind of guy who will make some big hits, mix it up, and maybe kind of help you with those momentum swings in games that they've dealt with, or even in a game like this, as you're just getting dominated. I don't know, lay a big hit on somebody, fight somebody, and maybe get the guys going a little bit. Or get them to relax a little bit, like, and just I don't know, think a little better with the pot.
Yeah, maybe. It does feel like I do wonder what Hayden would look like with this group now that it's not preseason and the team has a little bit more of an identity. I don't know what Hayden realistically looks like there, and I also don't feel like this team has gotten pushed around that much. Like that has not been an issue for this group at all. So I don't know that you would need him there to help fix that issue.
And the Viren pointing out that Winterson should possibly support just because he played well with Shane, but thinking Myers and Hayden are more likely. And yeah, Jenna with the Myers, Mason with the Myers, and suggesting Myers with Wright. I mean, like I guess they're both centers, but you could bump one of them out. I mean, well, you bump Myers out to wing, I guess. I just don't know that he really helps. He's not the kind of get in the corners, dig it out kind of guy that's going to create space and get it to Shane.
Exactly. Like it's one of those. I really feel like if we are going to see Shane start thinking more offensively and start with the production that I think everybody wants to kind of see from him, it's going to take him being in like an obvious top 6 role with guys like a McCann, with guys like an Eberle, players like that around him. And I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon.
Yeah, and James, I think Myers is the player that you're thinking of there, as far as the guy who excelled in the preseason. And then going up a little bit, I just want to say Kylie, I think did spot me in your feed. I think actually I am slightly visible.
Yeah,
in the background of yours.
Yeah, you're just on the end there.
Yeah, there I am. So that was cool. Let's see, what else do we have in chat? Because a lot of it is the kind of conversation about the lines and who to call up. Yeah, I think we kind of have reached the bottom of chat here. So, I mean, it is a little bit early, but I feel like on a game like this, I actually hit the end of chat before you showed up. and kind of had to wait for some more
Yeah,
messages. So I think we can probably do a last call as we're around the 45-minute mark here, and we can take some time and go on tangents with the chats here, but
yeah.
we'll kind of do a last call here.
I
Zoe, any updates on Rig and Riker?
Right. Yeah. So nothing was really kind of talked about with Riker. So I would assume everything there is fine. Did talk about Big Rig. By the way, credit to Jeff Baker with how long after he took the puck off the inside of his knee he was out there. Care to guess, RJ?
Uh, like how long it took him to come back?
No, how long he stayed on the
Oh,
ice after
yeah,
blocking the shot?
it was probably like a minute, over a minute, right?
A
Minute
minute
and a half?
22.
Yeah,
Which is
that was a
insane. I mean, that's like a really long shift just in general, much less for that to happen after, you've already taken that hit and you're in pain. Like it was
y-
that's
if
big.
if we're talking positives to take out of that game, and you can just kind of do situational moments, that shift itself was a nightmare. But
Yeah.
the fact that they got out of it, that they survived a shift like that, that's a little one that you can kind of bottle and take away just as far as the resilience, right?
Mhm.
They were exhausted. They could not move. The Canes were just doing everything they wanted to do, but it was Chandler Stevenson with that stick to get in the way of the cross ice pass and most importantly deflect it out of play,
Yes.
that helped him get out of that. So I mean that was it's one of those that if you are able to come back in a game like that, you point back at that moment, be like, look, they survived here. It would have been game over had they not done that.
Yeah, I think that one was huge. Dan giving a little bit of an update just in the sense that like he came back and kind of then just gave a nod like he's fine. So, we'll see.
Yeah.
If anything comes out, but for the most part, I think that was kind of it.
Yeah. And then James was thinking of Leighton Road. Yeah, he was fast. Speed
Yeah,
is his game. Yeah, he was fast.
I was
Any
gonna
chance we
say I
see him this
see
year? It's possible.
it is possible, and I've seen the people in there that are kind of asking about him. I do think that he would fit this system way better than say like a John Hayden. I don't know that he's as experienced, and I don't know that he's ready, but he's got the straight line speed. He's got that aggressiveness to just kind of go for it in a way that I feel like they kind of need right now. So if you were to call somebody up and it for a bottom six, bottom line role, I think he would fit the system, second best behind Ben Myers.
Yeah. No, I think so. He definitely brings that speed. Um, and then
And then
Byron, I liked right. Yeah, go
yeah.
ahead.
Oh, no, no, that was the one I was gonna talk about because I know somebody else earlier had brought up the possibility of putting Wright back between those 2.
Right. Yeah. Byron saying she liked Wright with McCann and Everly, but I like Beniers with them better. And I don't think we can afford to not have McCann Everly getting top six ice time. Yeah, I agree with that. I think Beniers is kind of the better fit with the two of them they're producing. And I think Shane, at least if you put him in the right situation, has more of a chance to produce as a secondary line, right, than Matty if you put him with somebody else. I think that could kind of drag him back to just being a really good defensive center who isn't really part of offensive production.
Right. No, and I think that that's one of the things that what it comes down to for me is just that, like, look, Matty's been around longer. He's more polished. I think he should be playing with those guys right now. Right. Like, you need to do everything in your power to keep those guys playing well. And I think, again, in this system, as much as I liked what Shane was doing in the offensive zone with those guys, giving them space, digging out pucks for them, what Matty brings is the ability for them to maybe cheat up a little bit, for them to be the guys that are breaking into the neutral zone out of the defensive zone because Matty's so solid there. Because Matty is so aggressive in the defensive zone, he goes out there, he gets pucks, he'll go and he'll fight somebody along the boards there. I think he's really freed up those guys to play what this system wants them to be, which is to get up the ice quickly with a breakout pass. And it's never going to be Matty because he's going to be doing the hard work. But how many times have we seen Matty kind of strip somebody of the puck in the defensive zone? It ends up then with one of the Kraken defensemen. They're able to make a stretch pass up to McCann or Eberle, and then off to the races they go. And I just think Matty brings that in a way Shane doesn't yet because he just hasn't been around long enough.
Right. And super chat here from Andrew. Thanks for doing this, even when the spirits aren't that high. We still have a bright future. Of course, thank you for being here, Andrew, and thank you for the super chat. I mean, look, win or loss, like we've been through plenty of both
Mm-hmm.
in our time doing this for every
Yeah.
single Kraken game ever. The wins are fun, but the losses I think kind of help us process everything together, and that's just as much a part of it as doing it for the wins.
Oh, definitely, definitely, definitely. And hey, this was a tough week. This was the toughest week that the Kraken have had to face. so far we knew that that was going to be the case because these were the toughest opponents that they were going to have to face, especially all three of them in a row here. And I think that, look, they played well, right? They got a point out of the Winnipeg game. You play close and kind of stay in it for some of these games, whether it's the Colorado game or this one. I think they showed that they are a different group than last year. And yeah, they've just they're kind of what we thought they were, right? Like they're better than bad teams. They're maybe not as good as good teams, but they're at least going to be in it, and they're going to be very, very watchable. And I will take that right now.
For sure. And Jeremy asking, have we considered cloning Eberle or McCann? Ask Striatic about that one. Yes, we have certainly considered
for about 4
that.
years now. Yeah.
Yeah, the calls to clone Jared McCann are a long running thing in the ECH community, that's for sure. And then James asking, is it weird for me to say I still miss Sprong? Feel like he's exactly the type of dude we need on the third or fourth line to just rip it. I like Daniel Sprong, and I think any team that brings him in, certainly around like the league minimum or whatever Vancouver's paying him, it's absolutely worth it. And I think he'd fit in really well on the way this team plays, just with the speed and everything. If you really wanted to commit to him as like a fourth liner, even, he'd be great. But I think that it's not going to happen anymore with this organization. At Genesis, I think Sprong had attitude issues in the locker room, maybe, but I'm not positive. Don't think the org liked him. I don't know that the org liked him, but I will say this. He was always a joy to talk to. He's someone I really miss having around. He was really funny. And when you walk in the locker room, there's certain guys that you're just like, you want to go talk to because you're going to have a fun conversation with them. Daniel Sprong is absolutely one of those guys. And so I do miss having him around. I never heard about any, locker room issues.
I was going to say, I don't know about the organization. Did seem to be in Hackstall's doghouse a lot.
Oh, for sure. Oh, yeah. No, it was pretty clear. I think Hackstall, would prefer to maybe not have him in the lineup if he had options. Yes. But I think Dan might be a little bit more understanding or forgiving.
Probably, yes.
Mason, time to go watch the prospect chat. I've been saving it to lift my spirits. Good timing, and enjoy the very beginning because there'll be a nice little special guest on Dylan's lap.
True.
So that'll be fun. Marina, Mrs. Morgan Geeky. He's another guy who was just a joy to talk to. And Geeky was great to have around. I don't think he fits as well with the way the team plays now, or, wouldn't necessarily have as much of a place, but certainly just as a person was awesome to have around.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like that from Cheddar Slice. And I know somebody else had talked about it earlier, the idea of a trade target for Shane Wright. I think just realistically, this team's not going to be in a position to trade for anybody until they trade away somebody and free up some money, because that's the thing keeping them from adding somebody, especially because, like, if you were going to talk about it specifically for a line mate for Shane, you'd want to bring in somebody, beyond just like somebody on a league minimum deal. Right. And so you'd have to have the cap space available to do a bigger move like that. And the Kraken just aren't close to it yet.
It's going to have to be money in, money out, unless you can find a player that's making less than $4,000 this season in the NHL, which
and the league is okay with it somehow. The PA and everybody have signed off on such.
Yeah, I'm sure Vegas will find a way one day, but I don't think Seattle's going to be the team to do that. You have to trade someone out to get
all this cloning other people. You clone like a Frank Foyston or Bernie Morris or somebody from the Metropolitans days. I think that's about how much they were making back then.
Yeah, take advantage of the inflation over the last 100 years.
Yes.
And you might be able to fit someone into their cap situation. So that's kind of where we're at right now. Cheddar Slice will play for $4,000. So get the skates on, Cheddar Slice. Let's see what you can do. Let's see. Just clone some cap space, says Jeremy.
Yes, exactly. So it should be relatively easy to clone money, right? I'm sure that's not a crime or anything.
yeah. Just call it cloning money. And
yes, it's not counterfeiting, officer. This was cloning.
Money. Oh, that's good. I for little too. Put him in.
Yeah. I am curious your thoughts on this one, though, RJ, from James. I know you guys had mentioned at the start of the year they'd have to make a trade early. Is that still the case, Tanaver Gord, or now that Dunn's on LTIR, does that pause the trade? It certainly pauses it because it frees up the money that you can make call-ups if you need one. But every game that goes by here, RJ, where we see something like what we saw from Alexiak or Riker tonight, it just kind of shines that it's like, okay, yes, you kind of like maybe need somebody around. I know they've got Kale Fleury sort of up and down every other day, but it's still if a forward was to go down right now, you just don't have anybody.
Well, you do actually, but you have the
Well, yes,
flexibility with Dunn on LTR, but you
yes,
only have that as long as Vince Dunn is out, and you're going to want him to come back as soon as possible. And as soon as he's back, you're back in that same position where if you have a couple other guys that are hurt, basically it's paused as long as you have players that are injured long term.
yes,
So that's the sticking point. You can't have anybody who's injured for less than 10 games and 24 days, which can you really string this thing along with always having
no,
somebody who is injured for like a
but
month at a time?
yeah. It's
No,
not
you can't.
sustainable to at some point, but I have, RJ, come around to
Yes.
this idea of kinda YOLOing it and just being like, "Well, look, this is a group that's working right now. It's the group that's giving us the best chance to win, and so until it actually is a problem, we'll just kinda ride it out. We'll just kinda keep rolling the dice and until it bites us, we're fine, right? Like, it's I know we very much framed it as like a, "This is unprecedented, you can't do this." But no, you actually can as long as nothing bad happens.
I mean, aside from Vince Dunn getting injured
Well,
long term,
yes,
you're
but it's
only able to do
actually
it because something bad
but
has happened.
yeah, but it's
Yes.
actually because something very bad happened, right?
Yes, which is
You're
good.
covered as long as good things are happening and as very bad things are happening, but you just aren't covered if, like, sorta bad things are happening.
Exactly. That's a good way to phrase it. I'll kind
That's
of
a lot
repeat that
of
on the
wiggle room
Armchair
there.
GM
On
stream.
2 ends, you get wiggle room, RJ. I'm
That
starting to
is
think
true.
they could keep this up for a while.
So I'm actually with you on that. Like, as long as Dunn's going to be out for like a month, there's no pressure to trade anybody. And Zoe's asking, like, if you had to trade someone now, is it Gord or Tanev? And I think we both kind of come around to maybe it's Ellie Tolvanen.
Yes. It's option C, I think, for me, yeah.
Yeah, it just seems like he takes the least away from the team right now, and that's kind of all you can afford at the moment, right? Is you don't want to be. That's the whole reason we were saying Tanev at the start of the season because we figured he'd probably take the least away, but he's actually contributing some important things that other guys aren't doing.
Yeah, exactly. So that's basically where I'm at.
Yeah. Mason asking, do you guys think that if Seattle was a guaranteed playoff team, they'd milk Dunn's injury? I think it's a little too early in the season. Probably not.
No.
And also, I mean, it'd be really hard to be a guaranteed play, even if they were stacked otherwise, to still be a guaranteed playoff team without Vince Dunn. Like that is a big player to take away. I mean, Tampa did it with Kucherov. Like, you can do it. Mark
Mhm.
Stone, but the Kraken are not at that level. So,
Yeah.
but yeah. James, I'd love if the Kraken are able to blaze such a noble trail of YOLOing their lineup at cap space situation. It is kind of fun that look, I don't like the Kraken are in this position, but I remember when it was like year 1 or year 2 for us, and we were talking with people from Vegas, particularly like our buddy Ken, right? And he's like, at some point you're going to have to learn the intricacies of the CBA and know all this stuff. It's in a way it's kind of fun to be there, just a little
Mhm.
bit.
Yeah. No, it is. It is. It'd be nicer if the team was kind of like those Vegas teams in the sense that they were winning more. But it is kind of fun in the sense that like there was a point about a week ago where it just like hit me that it was like, you know what, actually this is fine. And like, why can't they do this? Like, why am I trying to be a stick in the mud? Why am I trying to think about this logically when I could just be going off of vibes and feel, right? Like, that's
Yeah, the
fine.
cap isn't real. Nothing is real. I knew the inner nihilist would kick in you, Dylan, at some point.
No, I know, but how many organizations have proved time and time again that that's the case, RJ? Right?
Vegas for one, as
Yeah,
Marina doesn't like the
I was
Mark
gonna
Stone
say
mention, and
yes,
Matt and James reminding us it's league points leader Mark Stone.
yeah. Like I said, I
Dan's
was
got to kick it up a notch
yeah,
past
yeah,
Stone. He's
yeah.
close. All right. All right. So as we kind of reach the end of chat again, I actually want to go up for one. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Um, It was the one asking about. Oh yeah, here we go from Daniel. Dylan, were you following the Giants when Tim Lincecum was pitching there? He was an absolute stud, and I
Yes,
remember you telling me
big
about
time
big
Timmy
time Timmy
Jim.
Jim.
Yep.
Yes. So the
One
answer to
of
that
the
question is yes.
yes, one of the best This Is Sports Center commercials where he's trying to set up his like voicemail at the ESPN offices and he just keeps just keeps, coming up with different nicknames and all that kind of stuff. The freak, as it was called for a little while, the freaky franchise, big time Timmy Jim. It's good stuff. But yes, remember it well. Him and obviously throwing the Buster Posey, and I mean I could go on all that, but we don't need to do that now right into the podcast.
Yep. So I think we'll close things out on that note. I just wanted to get to that before we finish because I
Yeah.
saw it in chat and I knew the answer was very much yes. So as we end this, I think it's good to kind of turn the page, move on to the next chapter. And this road trip that's coming up, it's going to be a big one for the Kraken, starting off in Montreal and then Toronto on Thursday after that. And you will be there at the game in Toronto. So this is part of what these reps are for there. I know you're looking forward to that trip and everything. I mean, what are you most looking forward to about going down to Toronto? Just real quick before we go.
I mean, just one, this is my first time out of the country, so I'm like, that's exciting for me. Get to do it with my girlfriend. That's going to be exciting. It's kind of like her birthday trip, so that's fun. But just be able to go to the Hockey Hall of Fame, right? I've spent so much of my life reading about all of these historic teams, historic people, all of these people that have meant so much to growing the NHL and the sport of hockey, and I'm going to be able to go and see their stuff and see the place where it's all kind of condensed and just in one location. So I'm excited about that opportunity. I can't say I'm necessarily excited for the weather. It's gonna be cold, and I'm gonna have to deal with that. But otherwise, yeah, I mean, I'm just excited because I'm going to the hockey mecca, right? Like that's certainly what Toronto says about itself.
Yeah, definitely. They do say that about
They do say
themselves.
that a lot, actually. So I guess I'll see if it lives up to the hype.
Yep. And I can't wait for you to join me from Toronto in a couple games. Jason remembering the commercial. Big time Timmy Jim. Nobody calls me that until he.
Yep,
Hey,
and
big
then,
time Timmy Jim.
yep. It's a great
Again.
one. Definitely go look it up.
Yep, and then seeing all the thanks and the goodbyes from everybody, and and James pointed out it's just so fun. Love this community. Win or lose, it's always a good time. We always have fun here, and we'll see you all again Tuesday after the Montreal game.